Hi, today I'm going to talk about a case study which is about sales operations integration. I was appointed as a operations manager for a company who was about to acquire one more company, and we were doing the process consulting, doing the process assessment, the kind of pipelines that we're going to integrate, how the people structure is going to be changed, and how the systems are going to be stabilized. So a lot of challenges we had in this specific engagement from consulting perspective, and we had to do multiple hats. Joined as the operations manager, then I started looking at the technical architecture, then we started looking at the process flow, looking at the incentive schemes of the sales guys, and then eventually landed up being, into the board of directors meetings once, just to show our presentation and our thoughts as to how it should work. The entire idea was to stabilize the sales ops, and that's what we did. So let's see some of the learnings that we had from that engagement, and I hope it works out for most of us. So here are the details of the case study that I was talking about. Client is a genomics company. It is actually an Indian company and growing very large and aggressively across multiple geographies in the world. The latest acquisition was another genomics company based out of US. And there was a bit of culture gap. There was a bit of structural gap in terms of how the president of the organization was thinking about himself in the post-merger kind of ecosystem, and how the actual acquiring company used to think about their role and how the organization should behave in the target state. So there was a bit of gap on the alignment of the structure and the kind of expectations from the people perspective. We had a lot of different systems, small systems on both the sides. They all need to be, consolidated, and the pipeline had to be made sense to the board of directors. The entire idea of this entire merger was that the guys were able to increase the pipeline size, and they could show some synergy to their customers, to their shareholders. But then, because the data was so fragmented, they were not even able to visualize that where the pipeline stands today, and after the synergy, maybe in 3 quarters or 4 quarters or 8 quarters, how that synergy will grow up from pipeline projection perspective. So the account forecasting was a challenge. On the people side, roles was a challenge. There was a lot of hesitation in sharing information. Uh, Forget about the sales data, even the technical data as to how many systems you have, how many Excels you have, how do you calculate your incentives, who is your, and there were favorites in the organization that who should, keep this data, who should not see this data. And we had to bring the data and the privacies all to the system, but not to the people into the ecosystem. So that's the kind of challenges from culture perspective, from people sensitivity perspective that we were dealing with. And obviously, there was the Indian part versus the American. So, in terms of who's the boss, idea was to look into eventually streamline operations, technology, and visibility, so that the board of directors and the actual shareholders of those entire company could see where the company is going to go in the next 4 to 5 quarters. And that's where we started looking into. And this company who has acquired this American US genomics company, they had some historical acquisitions as well. So they were not just carrying their own package, they also had some other historical, organizational data as well from the other acquisitions, which also needs to be mapped. So it looks like, there are three partners or four partners. They all had to come together to a boardroom, and they have to talk about who should hold what accounts from here, who should be a regional head, how the structure of the organization should look like, and what data we have to share to each other on a frequent basis. And until the system stabilizes, who will own the data? And that's where the things came in. So the first thing that we did as a solution was to create a shared service, a small shared service. It was just a 4 people kind of thing, and in which one was the lead who was reporting straight to the overall CEO and the board of directors, and he was accountable for all the pipeline reporting and account forecasting. And there are three guys who were kind of made accountable for pooling in data and systems from different other organizations acquisitions that we had, and they all came together to start consolidating data. The moment we started looking at the data structure was different. It means sometimes the account whom we thought was the account, payer or sold to, was actually a different, company or different, entity in some other, acquisition, because they were dealing with the same brand but with different entities. So there was no hierarchy in place as to who should do what. So what we started doing was to put the shared services one guy on the job who started looking into all the data hierarchy and missings, and started looking into the actual intelligence reports from the board of directors using Salesforce sometime, using LinkedIn some of the time, and started defining the org structure within the target CRM system, the cloud system that we had. And we started saying that no more separate systems for anybody. We will pick up the data of the largest cloud application that we might have. Had one in one of the acquisitions, and we said we will all co-own this application for the future. And that was a decision period, that in future we will work with this best in class Salesforce based cloud CRM for sales of operations. And every other data will be imported here, and the data import will go through a data cleansing strategy wherein somebody will look into the account hierarchical data. He will look into the current pipeline, the historical data closures. He'll look into the contact setup, and then their integration to the actual accounts that we were setting up. So both the accounts, sold to, ship to, payer, the contracts, the contacts that we created, all were brought together. It was a very painful process for almost 2.5 months, when the data cleansing was kind of done by the shared team. And this data cleansing team had a very heavyweight thing to handle, because people were not sharing data, and the ones which were sharing data was very half cooked data. And suddenly the data was kind of showing different numbers when they used to present to their own team members and their own leaders. So we had to make sure that everybody was transparent, and there was a process set up that whatever data you present, if it's not showing up in the dashboard in the cloud CRM, it will not be presented to anybody in the executive level, because that data is not been cleansed and it's not been reported well. So that the duplication of reporting doesn't happen, the aggregation and cumulative accounting of the data from sales pipeline, from account forecasting perspective, can be avoided. So that was the first part, data cleansing. And it was a, even though it was a human intensive job, it was always had to be accountable to somebody who knows this account. So we identified 4 to 5 different regional sales head, who will be owning the Americas geo, who will be owning the European geo, the APAC part of things. And then I started saying that you will co-own the different team members from that region, even though they are coming from different entities in the source ecosystem, but in the target ecosystem, they will be all be dotted to one regional head, who will be leading that specific region as a boss. And therefore all the data in the pipeline has to go through him. So there was a consolidation, not just from the tech perspective, but also from the role reporting perspective. It was a dotted one, but it was still there. A lot of people had a resistance to change that. Now you have acquired me, you are changing my boss as well. So we had to make sure that a bit of cushion with their existing boss, but also a dotted reporting to a bigger boss across the regional ecosystem that we set up was also there. uh, Third part was the data governance. Once the data was cleansed, we don't want the new garbage data to be popped in. So what we said, that anybody who has to put new accounts, who has to put new contacts or new sales opportunities, they have to move to new CRM system from that day. Anything beyond that will not be accepted and will be challenged by their own regional sales heads. So everybody was forced. We removed everybody's account from their old CRM systems and made sure that at least the right level access is given to the newer sales CRM, and the old CRM systems where only had read level access. They can see their historical data, but they cannot update it. For anything, create and update, they have to come to new system. And that was a governance process setup, that if you put a new account, if you put a new contact into your new geography, then you have to come with the right set of process, so that the opportunity workflow can be kicked in into one central system. And that's how the account forecasting can flow in. It was again a bit of push around for a quarter or two with all the regional sales heads and the executives of the company, but eventually the governance process did take its own structure, and people fall in a line. That's again. So it's not just the data cleansing, but also the data governance after the cleansing has been done. And you have to train people, you have to push around a bit with the top executive commitment, so that people fall in the line. And that's where the systems, the governance ecosystem, the data, and the other sensitivity part of knowledge sharing was brought to the table. Now we also did a bit of knowledge management for sales guys. The synergy and the projected synergy was also presented. So we took some of the senior solution architects of the company. They came together and we defined the top eight themes, which means that in future, now since we have three company, one of them was acquired today, one of them was acquired in the past, and one of them is the parent company. How these three companies can be sold to the market in the future. So we said we will sell with eight themes, and the entire marketing and related pipeline was getting aligned and tagged to those 8 themes, so that we know what theme is working for us as part of the synergy part of things, and what theme is not working for us. And we ran this operation with the executive and the board of directors, and with the regular reporting every, at least on a quarterly basis, to show which theme was picked up from the genomic services perspective, which was, for example, there was a theme for selling it to specific to the government services when it comes to forensic data and kind of other genomic services. And it was a huge hit because the government wanted to make sure that all the 9 yards has been covered and they are able to do the right litigations in there. But there were other themes in which there were hardly, small deals were coming for services business, and they were not working out. So we kind of, said, okay, we will cater it because we want to maintain the relationship, but we will not be able to grow it because there's no big business there. So we had to consolidate somewhere. We had to push our marketing and the sales efforts somewhere else, depending upon the theme of marketing and GTM that the guy selected. Last but not the least, the customers and partners need to use to be able to quotation systems. Because there were a lot of people sensitivity and people dependency, and to some extent even red tapism within their own organizations. What we said that moving forward, any kind of quotation which has to go, it has to go from one central system. And that where the shared services again came in, because the shared services had executive reach very much nearby. Any kind of quotation, we made a very rudimentary CRM form so that the people who have to have some codes, they can actually ask for those codes. And once those codes were given, with the CEO consultation, with the sales operations and the legal consultation, those codes were turned around very fast, and also in favor of those guys who were actually trying to get the quotations internally, so that they get the confidence that the system and the process that we had done actually works for them. And that's where I'm saying that the fourth part, which is very important, is to build trust. If you put a process in place and you want the change to happen, you have to drive that change for at least 2 quarters with full heart as executor. So if somebody expects you to deliver quotations, you turn out those quotations within 24 hours. If somebody expects you to give them legal advice from CDA, NDA, MSA perspective, you turn out very fast. If you keep delaying at executive level, at the operations level, then the entire merger and stabilization process will slowly, the trust will go away. People will try to go into their own cozy worlds with their own ex-bosses. So you have to build trust, you have to put the process, you have to govern the process and show better results than what they used to have in the past. And that's how the sales operations can be done. It's not just technology, it's about building data, building people, defining roles, making accountability, having the right governance and process in place, and eventually the technology part of it. I hope this session helps. I'll look out for more case study discussions with you. Thank you.